right, thank you for staying with Citizen TV's Kenya's Choice 2022. Even during the break, a lot of conversation was going on. Let's rope in part of your views before you start talking about leadership and integrity and also the Public Service Commission transition going forward. Let's bring that up on your screen and show you what you're saying out there. Remy Butia says the division of the IEBC Kenya Commission doesn't have a huge impact in terms of the law. The presidential returning officer is the chairperson of the commission, and that sole responsibility is not shared among other commissioners. Okay. Engineer Lazaro says Chebukati has no moral authority to defend his mess in a press conference. The tension between him and his commissioners alone is enough evidence to show the process didn't meet transparency threshold. Chair took partisan stand. Okay. Leonard Masika says, good morning. Let's wait and see the evidence the four commissioners would bring on the table. Maybe it's Chebukati who blocked the runoff. I am happy that we Kenyans are calm and doing our normal businesses for the sake of our families. Okay? Chalo Woodrose, he says, running an election that pleases both sides of political divide is not easy. IEBC really tried, even though something happened towards the end that was termed as opaque. The Supreme Court will have to determine what really happened. Okay. Dr. Juang, as we wind up on this conversation and let's talk about the leadership and the integrity part of it, plus the transition that the PAC is now doing, what are the possible outcomes of this petition, should it go to the Supreme Court? It hasn't been filed yet, though the Supreme Court is ready. They've set up a place at Milimani. Yeah. What are the possible outcomes? And
the Constitution envisioned that. They're saying anybody, it doesn't even have to be the candidate, even for no good reason. You know, for the 5 years they have been doing press-ups, waiting for this, and that is one of their main functions as the Supreme Court of Kenya. And so it is, what you can anticipate is that the Supreme Court can order for fresh election if they find, because I think the petition will be both qualitative and quantitative, maybe you didn't cross the 50% plus one, and maybe the process was not good, especially there are four commissioners who don't agree with whatever was happening, and they find that their conscience could not allow them, and they walked out. So there could be, then I think the timeline are very clear, that then triggers another fresh election. They could talk of a runoff, but probably nullify, because when you are saying this thing did not meet the standard, then you just nullify and you say, let us do another fresh election. Of course, up to this point, we have heard the allegations. We have seen what is being offered. The DNA of this election is in Form 34A. The rest just become things that probably could not be much of a game changer because you trace this election up to the polling stations. Was it verifiable? Was it whatever? And you can see that the commission ambushed the candidates, especially with saying, hey, everybody go tally those things. So in terms of openness, accountable, and verifiability of this election, especially carrying the Form 34As in their hands. But again, I think it is important for the process to play out. Yeah. The important phase is gone. This next one is another phase. It is equally important. There is chance to understand, to hear what was happening, what did not happen. But I think that right now the mud, you know, the mud both sides, or attempt to madden the things both sides. Remember, we can only account for the disagreement between commissioners the last day when verification had been concluded. And that is why you find that this become harder to say that but for the disagreement, because the agents were there, the commissioners kept. Remember, when the issue of Kiambu came, it is actually Commissioner Nyang'aya who came and clarified. So it sucks to be him, because now you are in another side. And remember, in their press conference, to their credit, they started by saying, we were doing very well. We did everything well, until a few hours. Opaqueness. Opaqueness now become the word of the year. There was time 34A. There's a time password, and I think amicus or the BBI, and you are pointing at me. So we are building our vocabulary, and that is not
political education.
Okay, Wanjiru, let me bring you now on this conversation of leadership and integrity, and also the Public Service Commission has affirmed that it is on course in its plans to manage the transition between the outgoing and the incoming administrations. But what should the incoming administration's priority be in terms of appointments? Because we've always seen several times they tend to appoint the political loyalists, so to speak. Yeah.
Right. I think that's a question on that should be preoccupying us, because we've seen that Kenya Kwanza, UDA and Kenya Kwanza have run an amazing political campaign. And I think when the dust is settled, because we wait for the court ruling to come out, there's a lot to learn about how to run an election, how to win the hearts and minds of a large number of Kenyans through very targeted messaging. We've seen campaigns that have gone to the very local level. We've seen as is the term designate? President-elect say that this talk about the deep state is null and void. There is no such thing as the deep state. So they ran an amazing campaign and a lot of lessons to be learned, and possibly pending the judgment of the Supreme Court, possibly they out-campaigned the Azimio. And really the lesson is, where were the gaps in terms of mobilizing the vote, getting the vote out? But the question then begs, can they govern? Because it's one thing that the strategies for politicking and mobilizing are very different from governing. And when you look at the track record of William Ruto, who's been in government, who has held high positions, he does not have a good governing record. He, as Minister of Education, he's on record as having defunded social sciences, as having really argued against, courses like sociology, anthropology, talking about, these are a waste of time. We need to invest in sciences. Of course, he comes from a science background. So, you can say that how did he perform as education minister? What is he bringing in terms of values and approach? If we look at the more recent, his track record as deputy president, really, and I think has not done well. The ministries, because under the bromance, they distributed ministries. And some of the ministries that were given under his charge have the highest instances of corruption. This issue of the dams, actually, that now became a campaign issue for Kenya Kwanza. It's very ironic, because as his ministry managed that very issue, we saw the mega corruption scandals. There's also now, when it comes to public service, the Public Service Transformation Unit was placed under the office of the Deputy President. Now, the Public Sector Transformation Unit, under the coalition government of the NAC administration, was under the office of the Prime Minister. So it was under Raila Odinga. And it has a very strong track record in its first 10 years. We saw it transform licensing, passport issuances. They were running these things called rapid results initiatives, where they'd go into a sector, they would look at what's not working and transform it. And really, they're the ones that came up with the Huduma centers. They're the ones who began to streamline the public service. So we saw the results then. Now, since this department moved under the office of the then Deputy President, we haven't heard from it. Actually, the Huduma centers that were implemented were placed under devolution, which was then under Ann Waiguru and continued under other. So his track record is not good. And the skills to politic and the skills to run government are different. And you know, looking at the conduct and the really performance of the Jubilee administration, their big weak point was the public service management. That is where it all fell apart from them, because they became too political. They created political positions, the CAS position that's now being discussed. That was a political creation, trying to make sure everybody's a little bit happy, trying to dish out rewards and awards, not recognizing that the public service has very well qualified people who understand the needs of the country, who are able to implement. They came in and brought in their own people, some from private sector, really muddied things. And we saw a lot of musical chairs about even the accounting officers. So the public service has performed dismally under the Jubilee administration. And we really wait to see, is William Ruto, you know, really thinking about this issue, or is he going to play politics with the public service? The last aspect of public service, of course, is the interests, maybe much as he said he's beaten in political terms the deep state, there is a deeper state in public service, because that's where they capture the procurement processes. That's where they really play around with the processes. Is he, you know, and given the background, the track record of, you know, let's be very clear, the UDA KK comes with a very compromised record in terms of leadership and integrity. So the track record, the corruption scandals that follow, you know, the UDA leadership, wherever they go, how will they deal with the public service? So the real question for Kenyans is great political campaign, good manifesto. Do you have what it takes in terms of leadership and integrity, in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the team to manage the weak link of the public service? The public service is both an asset to Kenya, but can also be the biggest you know, falling point. So, yeah, that question is really out there, and he will have to prove. I think there's a lot of skepticism. You know, he'll have to prove that he can do that, and otherwise that may be the total undoing. Yeah,
and Kevin, this is right down your alley. How should they deal with the public service? Because even that position that Wanjiru is talking about, the High Court had declared the Chief Administrative Secretary position unconstitutional.
Correct.
In fact, right now, Ambassador Anthony Mushiri, who is the chairperson of the commission, said that the administration that's coming in has to decide whether to keep that position or not. But how should they deal with the public service?
Trevor, the public service needs to be dealt with on merit. You see, 21 days after the new president is sworn in, it is expected, and in this case, in the event that Azimio actually moved to the Supreme Court, and depending on the scenarios and the judgment of the Supreme Court, 21 days after the swearing in of the president, the PSC, Public Service Commission, is expected to advertise. Why do you want to bother Kenyans with many, many voluminous newspaper adverts when you know very well that even if Kevin Osido advertises for PS devolution, he will not get it because you already have somebody who contributed to your campaign kitty and you are going to give them that job. So merit, merit, merit. Number two is, of course, the Constitution expects that you look at national, what is it called, regional balance. That across levels, at the cabinet level, even at the PS levels, all the way to the counties, that the county executive committee members are not just from your family, or they don't come from your ethnic community. Because in fact, part of the reasons why presidency is fought for, like life and death in this country, is because people have a feeling that if I don't have somebody from my village or someone from my community or the wider region in that particular government, then there's nothing we are going to get, or rather there's nothing we are going to come out with. So there has to be a mechanism in which the Public Service Commission and the administration enhances and strengthens aspects of regional balance so that people feel part and parcel of that government. Number three, and Wanjiru has also talked about this, is a performance record. Unfortunately for this government, and I wouldn't want to belabor that point because she's eloquently brought it out, this expected government do not have a very good public performance service delivery record. And that is why the president-elect, and in the event again that Supreme Court upholds his election, will have to look for a team that really gives him the touch to tone of the expectations of Kenyans. The manifesto is very good, but how about the implementation aspects? Are there going to be possibilities where then you do what President Mwai Kibaki probably did with the dream team? People who come together and they think for you, they are able to help you see the wider view of the republic and therefore provide advisories, give you policy briefs, and ensure that cabinet is also properly being managed so that the implementation aspects of what you are dreaming through, passing, of course, within the manifesto. And now we are talking about the county integrated development planning processes. The CIDPs are the counties, which cannot be compared to manifestos unless they are inbuilt into the CIDP, because that's how the budgeting process is done. So that team of performance that will be able to outcloud the negativities of malperformance, dismal performance of certain names that we can pick from this particular administration that is expected. The fourth thing, Trevor, is of course issues around service delivery, that citizens expect that what you said you are going to do is actually being done, and there are budgets that are being put to it. This administration will be inheriting almost, I think, is over 500 billion pending bills for county governments. How that is going to relate to the expectations of implementation of services that citizens probably voted for this administration, with the expectation and the narrative around hustler and bottom-up and all that. The expectations are so high. Of course, I've seen in some places like in Nyeri, where some candidates said, we are going to give you government land. And yesterday, people went to that place and they found policemen, and the police sent them away and said, this is government land. Yes, they said they will give you the piece of land, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The administration needs to know that government does not operate the way we run political campaigns. Number 5, Trevor, is that this administration is going to find people in those offices. Some of them have security of tenure. The IG of police, you will not fire him or her, in this case him, because you are the president-elect and you had very difficult relationships and, it is not going to work like that. The DCI is going to be the DCI, because unless Parliament, of course, comes up with mechanisms of changes, and so there's that element of deep state that is still going to be inherited by this government, because they are part and parcel of the public service. That is what their offices are. Those are their roles. Those are their responsibilities. Which brings me to the last one, which is the functions and roles of the president. I don't think it is to meddle and look for mistakes from junior or mid-level senior directors and begin to use them as people who cannot perform. I believe that the office of the president or the presidency is supposed to be this very high-level oversight mechanism that pushes for implementation. And how that is going to be seen is indeed captured in the kind of team that you are going to put to the fore. Of course, to the fore. The Constitution envisioned that politicians would not be in cabinet. And of course, the Jubilee administration, in the first part of it, 2013, we saw more or less like a very clean, professional team that was not very political. Of course, there are politicians, because they meet in the evening and they discuss positions that they are going to be given. Yeah. But largely in 2017, we saw failed politicians. People who vied as governors, people who vied as this, that, even MCAs being appointed into cabinet, which is how now the positions of CAS was created. The president-elect and his team, if the Supreme Court will uphold his election, needs to help Kenyans understand that for you to come into cabinet or even as a CEC member at the county level, you don't have to run for office. Yeah. And then you're beaten, then we honor you because you brought in more money or more numbers. The public service needs to be professionalized. It needs to be given its space. Yeah. And these phone calls that come and say, kuna tenda iko hapo, tafadhali chunga watu wangu vizuri. Kenyans, this government needs to help Kenyans understand that you can come from being a primary school teacher and apply as a director in a government, and you go for an interview, meet a committee, you present yourself, you are a young person out there who has done civil engineering, you can go to Ministry of Roads, and because you saw an advert, you apply, you present your papers, and you actually get that job because you don't have to know anyone.
Yeah. And Dr. Juang, this is an interesting conversation, because how then does the incoming government balance political interest and rewards, regional balance, and merit? Because the truth is, the political campaigns worked in a certain way. There were those who actually fueled the whole winning. Just leave them out like that. But at the same time, you have to look for political, regional, and merit.
Exactly. I think that the Constitution have a lot of values, including what we desire, like open, democratic, sharing, public participation. To me, I think they will have to do more of monitoring and evaluation. Of course, you anticipate, you think of it that what we are doing is almost theological, because we are saying how the human will behave. And so much of it is based on what we feel, our hunch, but more else theological. But I think monitoring and evaluation, I think the government should think of itself as service provider, and so the quality of service. And I also think that we will have to test the part of manifesto where they're saying in governance we shall run open governance, that corruption thrives in opaqueness. You see the fever of opaqueness have caught up with that things, when things are open, let us know who is doing business with the government. Then, by a big chance, we have already reduced, if not, we have dented corruption. So open governance, that's where they were talking of the state capture, that the government will publish who has won this tender, and so that people can know who is finding. You see, much of this problem reside when we have the formal constitution, but we like informal constitution, where you can not monitor because it is informal. So we are saying this is the constitution, but we are saying, hey, there is that deep state. And when you read the constitution, you don't find it, but it's somehow there. We are saying this is the government, but you are told because of handshake, you must report to so-and-so who do not have constitutional mandate. That informality is an avenue for lack of accountability, because we all heard throughout the campaign, I could have done much more, was it not for handshake? The informal part of handshake. And the other side saying, did you see me with any government position? Did you see me making any appointment? Which is also very true. No. But we also saw newspaper reporting saying that now cabinet ministers are reporting in Upper Hill. We also saw some pronouncement that now I have said that this we will do this way as the person in the government, or who the president have their ears. So this brought confusion in my view, and that is why I like the clarity that either be in opposition or be in the government, so we know where to place you. Therefore, we can have check and balance. Do not bastardize our institutions. Do not, and I'm glad that Alcinda is realizing what BBI could have done, because remember the cabinet were now to be politicians. They were to be in the House, they were to be in the executive, in the cabinet meeting with the president, but also come and run parliament. There was not going to be very clear. And notice I'm intentionally speaking in past tense, that in past tense, that we had a situation where the same cabinet minister, who is part of executive, the prime minister, the cabinet secretary is also a member of parliament and is checking the government, and we had in the judiciary another foot of the judiciary ombudsman, and all that. So I think that somehow the Kenya Kwanza government, one, the mystery of it is our time to eat is, you know, it might not have the legal language or whatever, or I might not be able to put it better, but it cannot be that others eat and others watch. And that brings me to the idea that when we say that, you know, 50 maybe voted here and 48 voted here, it doesn't mean that those 48 hate the 50 and that the 50 hate the 48. Sometimes we make a very divisive, polarizing narrative that, you know, maybe if you gave people a chance to vote for their second best candidate, most of them will say, if I'm not voting for Raila, I'll vote for Raila number 1 and then maybe Asla number 2. I like both of them. But there was no chance for that. People had to pick one. So I don't think that Kenyans are so divided that it is about 48 here who can never imagine the 50. I think there is a conversation across the aisle, but I think the constitutional values are important. I think it is important to remind Kenyans that we are the sovereign without the guns. And that is why it was very clear in my mind to say there cannot be another sovereign because the Constitution says sovereignty belongs to the people. That is why we are saying their votes start at the polling station, and that is where the power is. These sovereign have ways of checking their government. They have the courts, so people must follow the law. If whatever the executive order is illegal, illegal means illegal, and people must respect the rule of law. When rule of law thrives, when legality, that all your action must be supported by law, not your good heart. And you see, that is why, to some extent, we put much credit on so-and-so is such a good person. He can't hurt a fly. Please, let him just do good things. No, I don't believe in the government of man or woman. I believe in the government of law. You are a good person. That is why you should follow the law. But I'm not just going to say where you have weakness in your manifesto, but I know you have a good heart. Therefore, your good heart is going to thrive. Verify. Do not trust individual, trust institutions, build our institutions. We have seen what institutions can do. We have seen, can you imagine if this fallout could have happened in 2017 or earlier on? We have seen that with good results, people can still disagree, but results remain to some extent results. So let us have heart attack fighting about and we will have all the commissioners and all these other institutions will attract all kind of personality because they are Kenyans. But at the end of the day, let us build our institution. Let us have an open government. And to me, that will be the first thing I will put my eye on. You said in your manifesto in governance something that is unique, that you will have an open governance, that whoever does business with the government, their name shall be known. So that you know that Osinde here is won a tender for 15 billion.
Amen.
And so whatever is nini, then you can hold this thing accountable. But the opaqueness, the informality, the come, my brother, the personalization of power. Yeah. That has been our cancer. That if I like you, I say now, Tifa, you are going to operate under State House and you oversight us. But by this next office, just come to me direct and ask. Yeah. You know, we are friends. I'm running an open door policy. Yeah. Why should I see you on media? TV. Yet you can just call me. Don't you have my number? Just call me, I'll clarify. So that, you know, it looks so good and innocent, but that is how accountability does. So personalization of power. I don't like you, I don't like my deputy, therefore I don't. Let institutions thrive. Let this thing of do not outshine your boss. Please outshine your boss, because you are both working to serve Kenyans.
Okay, let's take some closing remarks as we wind up on this. And Kevin, I'll start with you. Where next from here? And the Kenyans who are watching you today, what message do you want them to hear as we wind up on this conversation?
So,
a word of advice for the incoming government as well.
Advice for the incoming government, I think it's very clear in terms of waiting for the Supreme Court issues in the event that Azimio la Umoja actually go to the Supreme Court. Number two is that a government is a government for everyone. It is not just a government for a few people. So the president-elect and his team should be able to be magnanimous in the manner in which they lead Kenyans. We are looking forward to a very spurring growth of our country, because we have serious issues. You are inheriting a government, of course, not inheriting because you've been part of it. We have debt issues, corruption issues. We have pending bills at the counties. And Mr. William Ruto, you have also been the chair of the IBEC. We have issues with the functions of counties. We have issues with the budget issues at the counties. We are hoping that you will be a better, especially having been chair of that particular institution, you will be a good president to ensure that resources go to the counties and that people get the services that they deserve. Yeah. To the Kenyan people, we have shocked the world, and let's keep calm as we have done, as much as all these processes are going on. This is really about them, and it has to be about us, because they are the leaders who are going to run almost all the spheres of our life, of our lives. Let's keep the calm that we have kept. Let's be peaceful, and remember that Kenya is bigger than any of these individuals. We can be better and compete with the global community. God bless you.
All right, Wanjiru?
Right. I think, on top of what Kevin has very ably said, we need to recognize that the president-elect, Kenya Kwanza, as a political party, comes with a lot of baggage because of the leadership. So that baggage has to do with accountability concerns, has to do with performance concerns. That is real. That is on record. Of course, we recognize that the deputy president-designate has an active case in court, a corruption case in court. That is major baggage, and we do not know how that case will be determined. So my first concern is the leadership and integrity issue. How can you implement a manifesto without paying attention to leadership and integrity? Much as Kenyans have voted how they voted, because Kenyans voted, and there's a good manifesto, good electoral promises, but we have lost sight of this leadership and integrity. So that's a concern. So the first thing that we'll be watching is, one, those economic promises, because those promise to transform the country. But alongside that, we have to pay attention to leadership and integrity. You cannot put in positions in office people who are likely to compromise institutional processes to benefit themselves or to circumvent the law. So that is a challenge. And I think as a Red Card campaign, the civil society Red Card campaign, this is one of the things that we are going to take stock. How do you deal with this contradiction? The second thing is state capture happens. These informal processes happen because of weaknesses in the especially the oversight framework, lack of checks and balances. And much as the Kenya Kwanza manifesto speaks to strengthening institutions, the proof, it's not just money. Great, we want budgetary allocations, but it's about the independence of institutions. It's about some of the incomplete reforms, the corruption cartels that still exist and operate in the police, in the judiciary, the corruption that's still there, much as the judiciary has done very good work. So we want integrity of institutions, but we have to really pay attention to endemic corruption that has become part and parcel. The weak, weaponized war against corruption, weak or rather inadequate role of commissions, ignoring Auditor General reports. So we need to really have very actionable plans on how to address this. And then maybe lastly is the issue that Doc mentioned here, separation of powers, clear lines of accountability. We want a clean administration, and we want to see whether after the great politicking, we are going to have great statesmanship, great leadership, and the management of the public service. And this really is a point to be proved, because we are not seeing the evidence yet. So I think the president-elect will have to prove naysayers wrong, the doubters wrong, and really show that there's been a conversion moment where habits of the past have really been put aside for good governance and meritocracy and performance for the better of Kenya.
All right. Dr. closing remarks?
I think one of the books I read is The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born. It means that, but people still marry and wed. But the book is saying the beautiful ones are not yet born. And it's talking of ethics and values, that there's enough blame to go around, but we must move to a certain direction. But I think, I wrote something here that I copied from my VC, and it is not much. I want to read it. That without hope, the darkness of our fears can easily overwhelm us into the inertia of despair and dehumanization of even those who have been in social justice. Because I'm seeing a lot of anger from those people who have been in social justice movement to, I don't like this person, I cannot take it, and I can justify even doing bad things because this is so bad. And this is immortalized between the soliloquy between Sarafina and Nelson Mandela. If you have watched the movie Sarafina. After Sarafina is exposed to worst brutality, and she starts by saying, I killed a man, Nelson. Is that what you want? Did I kill him? I was there. I wanted to kill him. But then I saw his eyes. See what they have done to me, Nelson. They filled me up with hate, but not enough. I have to be so full of heart that there is no room for anything. Make me numb, Nelson, make me numb. Sarafina's predicament of losing herself to brutality and meaningless of struggle is a reminder of the importance of social justice. That as we fight for social justice, let us not be bitter. And this one, I'm talking to civil society, because I'm seeing that they might have how they would have wanted the result to go. Please look at that mirror, look at Mandela, do not kill. Just find that, move on with the social justice. Because after all, bottom up is about equality. Yes, it should be tested, but it's about social justice.
Okay. That's where we have to leave it for now. Thank you so much, Dr. Duncan Ojuang, Dean, School of Law at the African Nazarene, and also human rights activist. Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch, and Wanjiru Gikonyo, National Coordinator, TISA, which is the Institute of Social Accountability. We're up next now. People are going back to school. Schools are reopening under a dark cloud of a disputed election. We'll talk to Dr. Emmanuel Manyasa, Executive Director of Sawa Agenda. He's also an education expert. We'll find out the in-trade for the government in terms of school, okay? A lot is going on. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we have that conversation.